pushed more than 40 million people onto unemployment and bankrupted entire businesses on the premise that COVID is so deadly, we can't go outside our homes without killing our neighbors. But now the left wants us to forget all of that because they've moved on to another cause. So riddle me this. What happened to the coronavirus? Or is that taking the day off for racial justice? This is LeVar Stoney, the mayor of Richmond, Virginia. Now, 2 weeks ago, Stoney here announced that businesses that had prepped for reopening in the city must remain closed after all, citing COVID fears and saying that the city must protect minority communities that have been disproportionately affected by the deadly coronavirus. Now, that proclamation from on high came just hours before many businesses were set to reopen their doors after weeks of being closed up. Stores that had already rebooked their clients and called back their employees had to halt those plans in their tracks and reverse course with almost no time to spare. Already struggling restaurant owners who had spent the last of their savings buying food in preparation for reopening were told to donate it to the needy and that the city would at some point reimburse their costs. The city set aside $50,000 for that effort. That may or may not be enough, but whatever. Now that was in mid-May. But on the afternoon of June 2nd, just earlier this week, Stoney, that same mayor, stood in a massive crowd of protesters within spitting distance of hundreds of other people without a mask, which he's mandated in all public spaces, by the way, shouting into a bullhorn, which he then passed around the crowd for racial justice. After handing the mic off to multiple people, none of whom were wearing gloves or wiping the device down between passes, Stoney joined the crowd on part of their march, hugging residents as though there weren't a pandemic sweeping the nation. Now here's Stoney screaming into the bullhorn sans facial covering. Here he is hugging a protester who is also without a mask. Here he is walking with protesters, many of whom are not wearing masks and none of whom are making any effort to stay socially distant. And here's Stoney passing the bullhorn back and forth among a bunch of strangers. Meanwhile, many Richmond businesses remain all or mostly shut down thanks to Stoney's orders. Yay. It's funny how the coronavirus, a pandemic smart enough to know the difference between a packed Walmart and a church, has now decided to take the day off to allow tens of thousands of people to pack into our city streets to protest the police. The same virus that was so deadly that Stoney had to throw the brakes on his city's reopening plan, further shattering businesses and costing residents their livelihoods, is now such a minor inconvenience that he feels safe weaving throughout a mass of sweaty bodies, hugging strangers who've been breathing all over one another for hours. And apparently, that's just what we've all decided now. The same virus that was so dangerous, so contagious, that hairstylists were being thrown in jail for booking clients, and Americans protesting unconstitutional shutdown measures were branded grandma killers by left-wing politicians in the liberal media, is now so tame, it's not even worth considering before you pick up your cardboard sign and head off to loot the local Target. While businesses remain closed, while restaurants struggle to pay their employees with only half their outdoor dining available to the public, while churches try desperately to adhere to capacity limits and millions of obedient Americans stand on socially distanced stickers plastered to the grocery store floor, mayors of major cities are now packing in like cattle with the very crowds they were telling us only days ago were cesspools for disease and death. Now, the last time I checked, deadly viruses don't just stop being deadly because people decide to pick up a different torch to run with, but that's what we were told when we pushed for reopening the economy so people could pay their bills, right? That deadly viruses don't care about your paycheck? We pushed over 40 million people onto unemployment. We bankrupted businesses and families for this thing. Food banks had lines backed up for miles. Employers spent gobs of money on protective gear and sanitation measures. But this must be the wokest virus in the history of mankind because apparently it'll take a week off so people can pack into the streets like sardines because they've found a new cause. And all the politicians who were demanding that we stay home last week are now falling all over themselves to join in the parade and score social justice points. If this continued coronavirus shutdown really is a ruse by power-hungry officials looking to save face after what will most likely go down as the most massive overreaction in history, then the protests of the past few days will rip the curtain off that wizard real quick. And if there fails to be a massive spike in COVID cases following this past week's chaos, city officials like Stoney will have no further standing whatsoever to mandate that peaceful, law-abiding citizens keep their stores closed, stand 6 feet apart, and wear masks while socially distancing. The gig is up. It is past time to fully reopen, and now there is no excuse not to. And that's your Reality Check America. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page, that you like us on Facebook and Twitter, and stay sane out there.